This is the lecture for Ancient and Medieval History on Thursday, the 17th of February, 2022. Good morning and welcome. I have to thank you as a class. When you were coming in this morning, you were all very quiet, except Dan.
Whoa!
You were all very quiet, and I appreciate it because I had a former student who's doing a college project on the genocide against the Uyghurs of Xinjiang province in China, and he wanted me to interview as one of his sources. So he asked a few questions. I'm sure he expected a 5 or 10 minute video. It ended up being about 35 minutes. He asked, so he's going to get what he gets, and it's going to be on YouTube, so other people can hear it too.
Oh, I can watch it.
Yeah, if you want. Why you'd want to, I don't know. Anyway, where we were is we had talked last time about the ministry of Christ and placing Jesus' trial in context. Before that, we had read about Jesus' trial in the Synoptic Gospels. So last time, Dan read for us John chapter 18, verses 28 through 31, which sets us up. Now, I've got to read the second section, so we're on the page with the big 19 at the top of the second column, and I'm going to start where it says 32. Actually, hey, Dan, why don't you read again that first section just to bring us into the spirit of it?
You got it, dude.
Thank you. That's Mr. Dude. At least it's not Dr. Dude.
Then they took Jesus from
Caiaphas.
There we go. To Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They himself did not enter the headquarters, so as to avoid ritual defilement and to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, What accusation do you bring against this man? They answered, If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you. Pilate said to them, Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law. The Jews replied, We are not permitted to put anyone to death.
Thank you. By the way, one of the funniest mistakes that some people make when they read this is they call the Roman governor Pilate. Pilates are a form of exercise. Pilate was the Roman governor.
Maybe he did Pilates.
Who knows? Maybe he invented them. Maybe that's why they... No. Sorry, thinking of Family Guy. Okay. Consuelo. Okay. This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. You're going to have fun because I'm obviously going to be stumbling over my own words in this. Verse 33. Then Pilate entered his headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me? Pilate replied, I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here. Now, note something. Jesus is referring to, quote, the Jews, unquote. Bear in mind, Jesus is Jewish. Jesus' entire life is spent as a Jewish man and then a Jewish rabbi. The other Gospels have Jesus talking about Judaism, about the law, in a non-completely hostile way. But one of the things that stands out in John is by the time John was writing his Gospel, Christianity was no longer part of Judaism. Christianity had split off. And the event that does that is the Jewish rebellion that happens 30 years after Jesus' crucifixion. In this Jewish rebellion, Jews fight, Christians don't. That splits them off. To this day, you have some crossover. Some Christians become Jews, like Sammy Davis Jr. Some Jews become Christians. But in general terms, these are separate groups now. The division between Christians and Christ and Jewish people have hardened. Let me turn the heat up. So that's why you see this reference to the Jews. Okay. Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asks him, "What is truth?" Which is a standard political answer. What is truth? After he had said this, Pilate went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him, but you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?" They shouted in reply, "No, not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a bandit. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. And the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they dressed him in a purple robe. They kept coming up to him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" and striking him in the face. Pilate went out again and said to them, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know." Would somebody like to continue mid-sentence? Sir.
And I find no case against him. So Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and a purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." When the chief priests and the police saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him. I find no case against him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law. According to that law, he ought to die because he has claimed to be the Son of God." Now when Pilate heard this, he was more afraid than ever. He entered his headquarters again and asked Jesus, "Where are you from?" Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, "You refuse to speak to me? Do you not know that I have power to release you and power to crucify you?" Jesus answered him, "You would have no power over me unless it be given from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are no friend of the emperor. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself against the emperor." Pilate heard these words. He brought Jesus outside and sat on the judge's bench at a place called the Stone Pavement, or in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation for Passover. It was about noon. He said to the Jews, "Here is your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but the emperor." Then he handed him over to them to be crucified.
Thank you. Now, when Pilate takes Jesus and after being scourged, after the soldiers have had their rough fun with him, crowned with thorns, bleeding from that, beaten, bruised, trembling probably, Pilate says to the crowd, "Here is the man." Now in Latin, ecce homo, behold the man. It's a famous line. You should know it. So that's the basic story. Now, let's go to the next page. I will do the first paragraph because it's blurry, and then I'll take a couple of volunteers to do the rest of the first column, and then somebody else to do the second column. So think about it if you want to read. This is from the Douay Catholic Bible. So this is an English translation by Frenchmen of Latin translation of the Greek translation of Jesus' life, which was in Aramaic.
That was great.
So there we go. Anyway, Jesus before Pilate. They therefore led Jesus from Caiaphas to the praetorium. Now it was early morning, and they themselves did not enter the praetorium, that they might not be defiled, but might eat of the Passover. Pilate and the Jews. So Pilate went outside to them and said, wants to take over here who has not yet read? I will pick somebody. Yes, sir. Thank you.
What accusations do you bring against this man? They said to him. If he were not a criminal, you should have not given him over to me. Pilate therefore said to them, take him yourselves, judge him by law. Jews then said, it is not lawful for us to put anyone. This was in fulfillment of what Jesus had said, indicating the manner of his death. Pilate and Jesus. Pilate therefore again entered into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, art thou the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, dost thou say this of thyself, or have others told you? Pilate answered, I a Jew? Thy own people, chief priests, have delivered thee to me. What hast thou done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom of this world, my followers would have taught that I might not be moved to the truth. But as it is, my kingdom is not from me. Pilate therefore said to him, thou art then a king. Jesus answered, thou sayest it, I am a king. This is why I was born, I am truth. One truth. Pilate said to him, what is truth? Jews prefer Barabbas. When he said this, he went outside and said to them, I find no guilt in you, but you have a custom that I should release someone to you. So we should therefore have a release to you. They all therefore cried out again, not this man, but Barabbas. How Barabbas was a robber. Scourging and crowning. Pilate then took Jesus and had him stood, and the soldiers laid a crown of thorns on his head, kept coming to him and saying, Hail, King of the Jews, straight.
Thank you. Who would like to read the next bit?
The Jews demand his death. Pilate therefore again went outside and said to them, behold, I bring him out to you, that you may know that I find no guilt in him. Jesus therefore came forth, wearing the crown of thorns and he said to them, behold, the man. When therefore the chief priests and the attendants saw him, they cried out, saying, crucify him, crucify him. Pilate said to them, take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt. The Jews answered him, we have a law, and according to that law he must die, because he has made himself the Son of God. Pilate again speaks to Jesus. Now when Pilate heard the statement, he feared the more. And he again went back into the praetorium, and said to Jesus, where art thou from? But Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, dost thou not speak to me? Dost thou not know that I have the power to crucify thee, that I have the power to release thee? Jesus answered, thou wouldest have no power at all over me, were it not given thee from above. Therefore he who betrayed me to thee has the greatest sins. Pilate's cowardice. And from then on Pilate was looking for a way to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, if thou release this man, thou art no friend to Caesar. For everyone who makes himself king sets himself against Caesar. Pilate condemns Christ. Pilate therefore, when he had heard these words, brought Jesus outside, and sat down on the judgment seat, at a place called
Lithostratus.
Lithostratus, but in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the preparation day for the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he said to the Jews, behold, your king. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate said to them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. Then he handed them over to them to be crucified. And so they took Jesus and led him.
Thank you. So this is the second translation that you're getting of the same bit. Now, the basic things that I would have had you notice in the first one, which was the one we read first, thus being the first one, the New Revised Standard Version, goes over some of the basics of the story. To avoid defilement, the Jews didn't enter the praetorium. They spoke to Pilate when he was on his porch. The Jews say we are not permitted to put a man to death. They're not permitted to crucify. They are permitted to sentence people to stoning. That isn't what they want to do. The various discourses with Pilate that Jesus has. My kingdom is not of this earth, Jesus says. So you are not a king, Pilate says. What is truth, Pilate says, which is the ultimate statement of moral relativism. Moral relativism, where you say that there's nothing right or wrong except what you think about it. It's all a matter of opinion. Juggling babies with bayonets might be a good thing from somebody's cultural point of view. That's not a new thing. That's as old as stones being put on other stones. What is truth? Barabbas is a bandit. Then in some cases he's a murderer. In some he's an insurrectionist. Jesus is scourged, mocked, and dressed by the guards in a purple robe. Pilate, after showing them the bloody Jesus to the crowd, and the crowd still wants his blood, takes Jesus aside and says, in so many words, "Won't you help me? Don't you know I have the power to crucify you? Any power you have," Jesus says, "is given to you from above." And the crowd, oh gosh, in utter hypocrisy says, "We have no king but the emperor." Oh, like the Jews of Jerusalem in this crowd are so loyal to Caesar. Right, yeah. Now, what we just got from the Douay is they use, instead of headquarters, the Latin word praetorium. It is, after all, from a Latin Bible. That makes sense. Ecce homo, behold the man. And one of the things that you can see in the Douay Bible is they have vivid section headings. So each paragraph has a summary. I like that. It's not in the original text, but it helps the reader understand what's going on in each and every paragraph. And since the Bible is a complicated thing, I don't think that this teaching tool is a bad idea. What you can't see, because this is black and white, is that if you look at the words of Jesus, they're slightly lighter than the words around them. Because in the Douay Bible, every word that Jesus says is printed in red. King James Version that I have does the same thing. So everything that Jesus says is in a different color from everything else in the Bible, because these are the words of the Messiah in a Christian holy text. Questions, comments, thoughts before we go on? One thing I will say about the crowds. One of the things that I wrestled with in growing up is how could the crowd be so fickle? On Palm Sunday, just days before, they're shouting, "Save us, save us, save us now, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest." And then the same crowd is shouting at the top of their lungs, "Crucify him"? What the hell? I mean, I know people are fickle, but that's pretty big shift. Well, the answer is that a lot of the people in the first crowd were not in the second crowd. And a lot of people in the second crowd were not in the first crowd. In other words, they're different crowds. In a city the size of Jerusalem, you can get a rent-a-mob on a variety of pretexts, and the rent-a-mob is going to be composed of different people depending upon what you do to attract their attention and gather them. So, in many ways, it's a different mob. There are still some Christians and some favorable people in it, favorable to Christ, but the majority is the priests' men, and the priests want in bed. Now we have the King James Version, which is the classic Christian Bible in English, commissioned by King James. It's not the first Christian Bible. There was a Christian Bible 50 years before, and it wasn't very successful. What is it about the King James Version that stands out? Well, first of all, it did have the best scholarship in the early 1600s on the Greek text. We have since learned a lot more, but for the early 1600s, it was cutting edge in terms of its interpretation of the Greek. But also, there was a conscious decision made to make the language archaic, old-fashioned-y. Lots of these, lots of thous, lots of wherefores. Why? Why would they intentionally use a form of old-fashioned, even stilted English, rather than the English that people spoke every day in the marketplace? Why do you think they might have done that? Emma?
So,
I'm sorry. I'll call her. Yeah. Okay.
So it could stand out to them, and so bringing in their head that's unusual. So that's
One of the things that I try to do, yes, go ahead.
I feel like it's also so you can kind of interpret it the way that you do, because a lot of the newer ones that are interpreted by other people, that's that person's interpretation of it. Not quite
You said this the other day. So you're saying that the archaic language forces a reader to think about it and come to their own conclusions in a way that the more contemporary language doesn't. Interesting. Okay. That's not an argument I've heard often. Thank you. When I read the Bible, I read a lot. I may read slowly, but I read a lot. And I try to read the Bible always in the middle of a prayer. Because I want to be in the right mindset to consider the Word of God, or to consider what I consider to be holy. So it's not like reading a history book or reading a fantasy novel or science fiction or the newspaper. It's I'm reading something that is supposed to inform my faith. And so I have to prepare myself to be in the right frame of mind. And when I'm not in the right frame of mind, when I'm worried about stuff or when I'm angry about something, it doesn't work. And I usually will stop and go back to it when I'm in a better frame of mind. Having the archaic language makes it seem old and wise. It tends to elicit in the reader a sense of reverence for something in the past. Now, most people naturally have a respect for old age. Not because there aren't old fools out there. God knows there are plenty of old fools out there. I have to admit, I'm sad for you guys in one respect. When I was your age, the old people were World War II veterans. They fought in World War II. And then it was Korean War veterans, and now it's to some extent Vietnam War veterans. But a lot of old people these days are former hippies. Personally, I hate the freaking hippies. It's not my thing. If you love them, yeah, great, peace, love, dope. But they never really appealed to me. And so the natural respect that combat veterans who fought the Japanese or the Nazis got from me, and the Korean War vets who fought the Chinese communists, what they got from me is not the same thing as what an old hippie who went to Woodstock and that was his formative life experience. It's different. But people naturally respect the old because most people die before they get old, especially in those days. So to make it to old age requires something on the ball. They've got to have some kind of wisdom. So using the old language tends to make people more willing to seriously listen, thoughtfully listen, even read with reverence. Now, I know you read already, but you said you were interested in doing the King James. So are you? If you are, you can do the first column.
Yeah.
Okay.
This page, right?
It's 28 with a little paragraph mark, and then led they.
Right. Then led they Jesus from Barabbas unto the hall of judgment. It was early. They themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, that they might eat the Passover. Pilate then went out unto them, and said, What accusation bring ye against this man? They answered and said unto him, If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up unto them. Then said Pilate unto them,
You got it. It's okay.
Pilate unto
I've done it myself. It's funny.
Take
No way.
him and judge him according to your law. Jews therefore said unto him, It's not lawful for us to put any man to death, that the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spake, signifying that death should die. Okay. Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again, called Jesus, and said unto him, Art thou the King of the Jews? Jesus answered him, Sayest thou this thing of thyself, or did others tell it thee of me? Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Thine own nation, chief priests have delivered thee unto me. What hast sworn? My kingdom were of this world. Oh, that's like,
No, it's my screw up. Basically, if Jesus says, "If my kingdom were of this world," so go on from there.
My kingdom were of this world, then my servants fight that I should not be. But now is my kingdom not from hence. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am. This end was I born. This cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice. Pilate saith unto him, What is truth? When he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews, and saith unto them, I find him no fault at all. But ye have a custom, that I should release unto you one at the Passover. Will ye therefore that I release unto you? Then cried they all, saying, Not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber.
Thank you. First of all, sorry about the cuts. It's just there's another one in the second column that's coming out. You can see that one of the distinct parts of this particular King James Version is there's pronunciation guides for all the names. So you can see how to say Pilate if you understand how to read phonetic marks. You also see much lighter red color for the words of Jesus. So this is something that the KJV, King James Version, also has. If you want to understand how Shakespearean English sounds, probably the most common thing that Americans encounter is talk like a pirate. Let's see. That the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled which he spake, signifying what death he should die. That's pirate talk. It's Shakespearean English. And it's what the King James Version is written in. And it's beautiful, I think. It's really, really beautiful. As a literary work, King James Version really stands alone. In the English language, the Bible is beautified by the way they do the language, I think. Who would like to do the second column? Sir.
The Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged. The soldiers platted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They put on him and said, Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him with their hands, no fault. Then came Jesus forth in the foot. Pilate saith unto them, Behold the man. When the chief priests therefore and officers saw him, cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, Take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault. Pardon. The Jews answered him, We have the law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was moved, and went again into the judgment, and saith unto Jesus, Whence art thou? But Jesus gave him answer. Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee, and have power to release thee? Jesus answered, Thou couldst have the power of all things, except if it were given to thee. Therefore, he that delivered me unto thee hath the bigger sin. And from thenceforth Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, If thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whosoever maketh himself a king maketh against Caesar. Pilate therefore heard the saying, brought Jesus forth, sat down in the judgment seat, and placed the called pen. But in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover of the 6th hour, and he saith unto the Jews, Behold your king. But they cried out, Away with him, away with him, crucify him. Pilate said unto them, Shall I crucify the king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar. Then delivered him, therefore to them to be crucified. Jesus.
Thank you. Then delivered he him therefore unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away. Beautiful English. Note something also. The New Revised Standard Version talks about it being about noon. King James refers to the 6th hour. Why? Because if you assume that daylight is 12 hours long, roughly hours, because you're dealing with pre-industrial times, halfway through that is the 6th hour. So it's not noontime anymore. It's the 6th hour of daylight when this judgment is made. Okay. Let's see. King James, pronunciation guide, purposeful use of archaicisms. delivered to the Jews, red ink, capitalizations, italics. Another thing is that whenever Jesus is referred to, usually it's a capital letter. Okay, New Testament in modern English. You know what? We're not going to read this one closely. You can read it on your own, but look at the painting. The painting is from my old Catholic Bible, the Douay Bible. And sorry about the middle, but it's where the pages meet in the center of the book. But on the left, you can see Pilate, this thin Roman guy. And in the middle, his face obscured by the page change, is Jesus. And the accusers in the crowd are to the right. Now, you might not be able to see it, but Pilate's a pretty ugly dude in this painting. But he also has this fearful yet angry look on his face. And what's he doing with his hands? He's washing his hands. This is Pilate washing his hands. Let's see. Next page. And the next page is Barclay's translation. And again, I'm not going to read this. This is an individual person's translation of the Greek into English. And it's going to be different from the others. The point is that you are getting a sense, I hope, of how different translations can be. Now, some notes about the New Testament in modern English. What have you done anyway? We have no law to put a man to death. They did by stoning. Okay, Gabbatha, Lithostratus, the pavement, the seat of judgment. These are all used differently for the place where Pilate sits down and condemns Jesus. Was Holy Thursday, Maundy Thursday, or Good Friday, Passover? When I was actually all the way through my adulthood, I had always assumed that the Last Supper was a Passover feast. However, it's not. Or at least it doesn't seem to be. Because, first of all, you wouldn't have the high priests be able to try Jesus after dark on the night of Passover. That's just a no-no. Secondly, they make very, very clear the Jews do not enter the Praetorium because they don't want to lose the ability to eat Passover. And if they go into a pagan place, they're going to be defiled ritually, and they have to ritually cleanse, and they might not get it done by the time sunset comes. So, in fact, I think Holy Thursday or Maundy Thursday, depending upon your tradition, the Thursday when Jesus has the Last Supper is probably the day before Passover and not Passover itself. Just a thought. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask for the shades to be closed, and it's going to take me a moment to set things up. What we're going to start with is a film made in the Yeah, don't shut the lights off just yet. Okay.
Don't forget to turn off your camera.
Oh yeah, please do that. Thank you. So, Barabbas is the first film. And it's made around 1960, give or take. It's the earliest of the movies. And what Barabbas is the story of the guy that was spared in Jesus' place. But it starts out with the trial, and as seen from the perspective of Judas Barabbas or Jesus Barabbas. So we will start with this, and you'll get a sense of the reverence. If we have time after that, before the end of class, we will see clips from the movie The Greatest Story Ever Told, which was made in the early to mid-1960s, 5 years or so later. And we'll do more of the movies tomorrow. So, give me a sec. I've got to load this up.
That's more for me.
Now you don't have to constantly clicking.
I read that.
Oh, okay. Give me a pen. Okay.
Yes.
What?
What? Oh, excellent. Thank you. So we're seeing film clips for the rest of the class. Bye.
Yes.